this isn't something that happens overnight. It's a slow burn. It's show by show, tour by tour, market by market. This isn't the end.
Tom DeGeorge, appreciate you
Hello,
being here.
good to see you.
Welcome back from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
How was that, testifying in front of Congress?
I mean, I got word, I want to say it was like 2 weeks.
Well, we had to reschedule this.
Yeah, I got word. I had told you, like, listen, there's a possibility I'm going to be able to go do this. I did a virtual call with them, talked for a bit, and actually got word that I would be going the Monday prior. So I had 1 week's notice to prepare myself, but knowing that it was a possibility, obviously I was, I've been doing these talking points for years and years and years now.
Since COVID is where you really started to amplify this.
Save Our Stages really started in 2020. And, at the beginning of Save Our Stages, I remember doing a interview with Eric Schneider, who worked for a long time, Tampa Business Journal. And I remember talking to him then, and he was like, wow, you have one of the most acute business acumens out of anybody I've ever talked to. And I took that as a real compliment because at that point, I didn't know nearly as much as I know now. But at that point, I had still been working in this industry for like over 24 years. But as far as the ins and outs and the struggles that we deal with and all those things, that really, came about since the start of Save Our Stages. Maybe it helps that I've been involved with community work for so long before then. And so you get a feel for what the needs of the city are, what the people on the ground want. But yeah, it's really only been 6 years now that I've been doing this type of advocacy as long and hard as I have.
There's so many problems that have popped up since COVID, especially here locally. I mean, even if you're not a business owner, just the people trying to survive and live. Like I had to pay twice as much for my house as a house across the street from me. The same exact house sold pre-COVID. I mean, it's like the price escalations have destroyed our economy. And we've had inflation for 6 years and it's still going up.
Yeah.
With really no end in sight with all the shit going on around the world. And you see like restaurants struggling. It's really not just music venues. It's all of these different small businesses that are having trouble.
For sure.
But with music venues specifically, with this Live Nation thing, what were you called to testify? Like, what was the purpose? And then talk about your experience going up to DC. Because I bet that was, first of all, amazing to be there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I got NIVA submitted a couple people to go and testify. And I think I was of interest because I had already went last year to speak to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division about Live Nation and my experiences with them and our industry's experiences with them and why we believe they were a monopoly. And so I think that trip was very important in them inviting me back because I think aside from me wanting to go there to represent our independent venues to show how harmful Live Nation can be to the ecosystem of our industry, I think the House and Senate Judiciary Committee on the Dem side wanted me to go also because I had been there at the DOJ and they themselves were curious as to why the federal government would have settled so quickly and tried to stop that trial from going forward. And probably just a little background because I think it gets confusing to people that aren't following it every single day. That trip that I made in April 2025 to go talk to the DOJ, that person that was in charge, the assistant AG of the Antitrust Division, whose name was Gail Slater, she and her assistant attorney, which also testified at that trial, were the ones that put together the overwhelming evidence that showed Live Nation is guilty and competes in harmful, predatory, anti-competitive practices. They were removed from their positions about 2 weeks before the trial started, and it was cited as insubordination. They wanted to continue this trial. So when they were told, like, hey, listen, let's try to settle this, they said, settle it. Why would we settle it? This is crazy. Look at all the damage these people have done. Let go from their position. Somebody else put in. A day into the trial, settlements reached $280 million. That's not even a weekend of sales for Live Nation.
Yeah.
So in NIVA, we were spinning. We're like, we have to make sure that these states stay in and continue this trial. And that's exactly what happened. 34 states stayed in. They allowed the trial to continue. If they would have left the case, it would have been over with, and that would have been it.
Wow.
We were this close to all that work going straight down the toilet. Because the trial continued and those 34 states stayed in, allowing a jury of our peers unequivocally, undeniably, and unanimously to say, yeah, this is great, these guys are guilty. Now those state AGs that stayed in, Florida included, thank you for staying in Florida, will advise the judge and say, listen, this is what we recommend for punishment because this is what really needs to happen. And when I spoke, once again, aside from giving those remedies and saying, this is what we need to do so they can't hurt their competition any longer, once again, I think the House and Senate wanted to hear so they could, if they take control of the House at some point, they can look into why the federal government settled so quickly, so readily, and for so cheap.
And with the Live Nation monopoly, which they have been found guilty of, correct?
Yes.
So I watched a little bit of your testimony, and you were explaining how Live Nation sort of groups together the promoters and all these different people that work. Here you are right here, looking very dapper, sir.
Thank you.
But explain what Live Nation is guilty of. We know monopoly, but what were they doing in these markets that killed local venues? Well,
I think what people need to understand is a lot of it is because of since the merger happened with Live Nation and Ticketmaster. At this point, Live Nation, they control the tours, they control the ticketing, they control the promotions, they do artist contracts, and they control the vending. So you have like 5 different pieces of the industry that makes the industry what it is, that usually multiple people do different things and you work together to create these things. And Live Nation has full control over all of those, which means they can set the market any way they want. So one of the things I explained when I was there, because people say all the time, well, I don't understand how a 4,000 person venue can affect a 300 person venue.
That was my big question.
Right.
Yeah.
So first of all, aside from that, what I try to tell people is it will eventually, not necessarily the venue itself, but allowing Live Nation to vertically integrate into the market where they gain more control of our Tampa Bay market will eventually affect me. But Live Nation as a entity itself, one of the stories I told when I was in DC was, and this happens to people all the time, they take a tour. They basically tell the artist, we're going to do the tour for you, but we want to control every single date of the tour. And they were trying to force themselves into my room for the kickoff of that tour. I declined. I said, listen, I don't have any sort of agreement with Live Nation. I'm sorry, if you want to take this to another venue in the market, you can, but I'm not going to do it. And that artist in particular, once again, it was the kickoff of the tour, and they really wanted my room. I have a legacy room. I have artists at this point that request my room. If I was just the average person, it would have been over at that point. They would have picked another room, and I would have been completely out of the gig unless I agreed to let Live Nation come into my space. Because I'm established, I was able to thwart that, but I think that's helping people to understand the way they control the tours. If they can do that, then there's no fair market, period, because I'm not getting an opportunity to even bid on the show if I wanted it. In addition to that, because they had already set the contracts for everything, knowing that they don't even have to make money on the tour itself. They can say, hey, listen, we're going to pay for this tour.
Right.
We're going to offer you $1 billion. And you could sit there and do the math on any of their offers and go, hey, even if every single one of these shows sold out, they can't make money. But it doesn't matter because they're going to make money on the resale ticketing market, which they utilize, which steals tickets from my inventory all the time and hurts my spread. Right, because they are Ticketmaster.
Wow.
They can make vending deals, sponsorship deals. They can
promo.
They can get into that artist where they say, we're going to lose money on this first one, but you're also going to agree to do your next tour. They can do things in ways that no other venue, promoter, ticket company can compete with because of the fact that they have monopolized the industry and they have their hands
Right.
in it.
And that's why in this country we break up monopolies, because they
Well, that's why we're supposed
outcompete-
to.
Well, we're supposed to. Well, it sounds like they are, right?
I mean, let's not,
Sure.
Pearl Jam, we've seen this before. And I will say that too, because, I try not to read the comments on socials and stuff. It drives me a little bit crazy, but you hear all these people in there and they're like, well, it didn't work before. Why would it work? Who cares? What's the point of this? That's why we have to continue to speak up. If we just quit on things every time something doesn't go our way, we're never going to get things where they need to be. And if people want to see affordable shows, they want to see ticketing that can be somewhat regulated.
Yeah.
They want their local venues to be prosperous. They should be paying attention to closely what's happening, not just in the national market, but in our local market right here in Tampa as well.
And if not Ticketmaster, who could handle that venue? Like Venix Sports Group, VSG?
Well, I mean, Venix Sports Group is trying to build their own building right now. There's going to be plenty of people that are going to say, this venue, our market could support this venue and another venue. I think, and I don't know how much you've been watching about the Blue Dot and these different things and how a lot of these shows right now are not doing well and how ticket sales are down. Tampa just years ago was a tertiary market. Nobody was coming here.
Right.
I would argue that because of our strong independent venues and strong independent promoters, we became a stronger market. We started to become an area where younger developing artists realized, hey, listen, there's a need for this out here. And I would argue that those rooms that were the 400 person rooms or the 1,500 person room, the 2,000 person rooms, have what made it attractive for somebody like Live Nation to want to come in here. But the fact that we would go from what we have now, which is already a struggling market, to adding 2 rooms of extremely similar size, about a half mile down the street from each other, and one of them is an illegal monopoly, I think that's a problem.
Also, too, where do new artists get started if all the small rooms go away?
Well, that's
I guess the
a big
internet is.
problem.
Do you think the internet has
No.
No. The internet doesn't have a lot to do with some of the new artists getting found and getting on the scene and then maybe skipping the small room phase and going to these medium and larger
I
rooms?
think that the internet should be treated as a tool in the 7, 8, 12 things you need to do as a developing artist to get to those stages that
Yeah.
you should be playing on. I think we might have even talked about it a little bit when we did the current conversations. After the pandemic, I saw a huge influx of TikTok artists coming
Right.
to my room because guess what? Everybody was a TikTok artist during the pandemic because there were no rooms to play in. The problem was you would have these artists that had never been on a stage in their life. All of a sudden, they're getting plucked by large, massive corporation monopolies that only see dollar signs like Live Nation. And then they're putting these kids out on the road. I had a kid that was in my room one day that was scared to death to even come out of the green room because there was 300 people in the room. And he's going, I've never done this before. It's like my 3rd show. I'm freaking out. And that's my whole point. Like you can replicate
Right.
and you can get in front of the masses. I mean, I obviously use social media myself for my advocacy. So I would never tell an artist that they shouldn't utilize TikTok or any way to be viewed. Of course you should. But my thing is there is no replicating what it is like to be on a stage in front of a crowd. You can't virtualize that. It's real. And you need that for artists if they're going to eventually develop into the artists that do play the 4,000 person room or the 10,000 person room or the 20,000 person room. You can't start with those. You have to have your 200 to 300 to 500 to 1,000 cap rooms to get them to the next step. And what we are seeing through the state of live data that NIVA came up with, and through our Stay of Our Sages, and through this journey, is that 65% of those rooms are unsustainable right now. The reasons why they're unsustainable is because of the same problems that other small businesses have. You have inflation, you have development, all these rising costs, but you also have
we put this up here.
large monopolies like Live Nation that make it even more difficult for those smaller rooms to survive, because they're driving up the price of the market all around us.
Were you ever an artist or into I mean, I know you're into music, but did you ever perform music, or was it always
I sang in a band for a little bit.
Before Crowbar?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
What was your band?
Devil Swamp Militia. Yeah, we were
That's a hell of
kind of like
name.
I called us swamp rock. Like, if you've ever heard of the band like Clutch or something, it was just a real southern swampy, like metal, like droning
Yeah.
stoner rock, but it was just heavy.
So you had experience when you were, and this was, I mean, pre-Crowbar, so 30 years ago, maybe something like that, 25 years ago.
Yeah, it was probably, when I get here, 2000. No, I mean, Crowbar opened in 2006. This was probably like 2003. It's when I was still running the Masquerade. What I would tell people is, like, all my experience of, maybe not all my experience, but I did get some opportunities just by running venues themselves. Like, when I started running the Masquerade in 2001, I got an opportunity to do some stuff in the indie wrestling scene, because we were doing wrestling shows there, and people are like, "Oh, you're entertaining. Do you want to do this?" And then that's how I got the opportunity for a band too. You're working with all these bands, and people are like, "Wow, man, have you ever considered this?" And I've just been one of those people that if you ask me to try something, and I'm like, "I wonder if I could do that," then I'm usually going to try to do it.
And so you opened Crowbar in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes, what a journey, man. So what was that like? Did you open it from its inception, brand new, or was that already a music venue before Crowbar?
No, I mean, Masquerade closed in February 2006, and we got like a small group of people together. We had actually almost first tried to see if there's a way to stay in the Ritz under a different banner. Thank God that never happened. I think we would have been in big trouble. It's very hard to, it would have been hard for me to go into a space that big. I didn't, when you're a manager of a place and you're doing your day-to-day stuff, you don't necessarily see all the other things that go into operating a space that big. If I would have tried to do that first, I think I would have been in big trouble. Opening Crowbar was almost an accident. I was helping another guy submit to try to turn it into an Irish pub, and that fell through. And then I thought, well, this could actually work for a venue. So myself and my partner, Devin Norden, who owns Reservoir Bar, we went in there and said, what about this? And the landlord, who is also a music and arts fan, said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And between myself, Devin, and then we took on another partner, Bonnie, shortly after that, the three of us, owned and operated Crowbar.
So the big thing now in Ybor is a lot of the ownership and the larger developers want more retail and more daytime activity. There was a time in the kind of late 2000s, I think Central Ybor was developed maybe in 08, 09, 10, something like that. Did you notice any foot traffic pickup, slow down? Like, how did those initial phases
when Central came in?
Yeah, because remember, there was like an Urban Outfitters, Victoria's Secret, there was a movie theater. Like, there was, like, I remember when I was little, we would go to Ybor all the time and like hang out and, restaurants or whatever it was.
I mean, when I got to Ybor in 2001, Central was already a thing. It was already there. Everybody hated it. Everybody, I mean, I wasn't a local at the time. Coming in, I'm going, oh, wow, Ybor City, this is pretty cool. I'm trying to learn about the district. I'm talking to...
Well, we would mostly go for the movie theater.
Movie Co.
We weren't doing a whole lot of shopping,
not a whole lot of the other stuff worked, but I think people just...
Oh, it didn't work at all.
Nobody liked it. Like,
it's very like Disney World,
That's what
what I mean?
People thought
it's like
kind
fake.
of destroyed the authenticity of the district. They weren't crazy about it. Listen, I'm always going to say, I think that you trust your small businesses and your local entrepreneurs. I think that if you try to do that same thing and you incentivize in a way that the locals can afford to go into a space and put their creative flair on it, I don't think it gets the hate that Centro got when they first tried to do something with the what was it, Victoria's Secret, and what was the other what was the clothing store you just said, the clothing store that they had?
Urban Outfitters.
Urban Outfitters.
And then there was like Game Works or Game Time. Isn't that still there though? It's a different name.
It's Game Time.
Game
but
Time.
It was Game Works, and then they switched to Game Time. It's different operator.
Okay.
Same concept. But I mean,
that's the only place that survived though, in Central Ybor. I mean,
but they're also, I hope I don't upset my neighbors, but they're also a larger thing. So even if they're losing where they are, they've been able to use it. I wouldn't say as a write-off, but I think if you asked,
it's like a big corporate.
It's a corporate thing. Okay. I think if you asked, if you asked the people that the higher ups at Game Time, if that business is profitable in that space, they're probably going to tell you no.
Wow. Or maybe they're making all the money on alcohol or whatever it may be. Definitely not.
It'd be
games.
A lot of alcohol for that space because they're just not extremely busy over there.
It's just interesting that there was a moment 20 years ago when all of this was there was a lot of retail and there was more daytime activity. And you had a small business, the same business you have now, right? Back then. Yeah. Did you feel a difference at all?
People just really didn't like Central Ybor.
I remember that.
I mean, I think that once again, I don't think the retail is a problem. I think like if you asked anybody, would you rather shop at Urban Outfitters or would you rather shop at La France? They're going to say, I'd rather shop at La France. I mean, it's just it's the authenticity. Before we even got on, I was saying, I think the problem is right now Ybor's having a hard time finding its identity because of the development, because there is so many exterior forces that are influencing what's going to come into the district. Ybor City, to me, the key word for Ybor besides history has always been authenticity. It's real. Like the stuff that's in there should be passionate. It shouldn't just be a storefront geared towards, let's try to get people in and make some money. Those small businesses have passion in them. They have vision. It's people that are selling an idea that is a small piece of themselves to the community. And I think that resonates to people that want to come to the district and to the consumer.
I think it's what makes a place unique. It's what makes a place want to be visited. There's so many places around this country. We've all been to them. Again, Central Ybor was a development of that era. So was Channelside before it was Sparkman Wharf. It's kind of the same feeling.
It's a reboot.
Corporate feeling. But there's places all over the country you can go to that are built like Central Ybor, where you've got all these same corporate tenants, Buffalo Wild Wings or Chipotle or whatever it may be. I think the problem is like Water Street. They tried to focus more local, and then they ended up signing the Chipotle. It's just the financial numbers. They try to make the deal work, and it's a lot easier to get a bank to loan you money. It's a lot easier for your balance sheet if you can get a national corporate tenant. Yeah. And I think as hard as these people try, ultimately the answer unfortunately ends up being the same. They have to sign those corporate tenants. It sounds like with Gasworks, I've had them on the show, different interviews from different people. They are focused on local. They're talking to local businesses. They're trying to get local businesses to sign leases in this place. It seems like they recognize maybe some of those mistakes over the years and are trying to get in local businesses, but you might see corporate leases. I have no idea, but you could see corporate leases. Like we had a Buffalo Wild Wings next to you for a long time. It's not there anymore.
They failed miserably.
And yeah,
they really did.
Well, Buffalo Wild Wings, like that place was like microwave chicken nuggets.
B-dubs.
But
food was really bad.
The idea where you could go to Ybor and get lunch and a beer or like watch I think that's a cool concept. It's probably the wrong operator. Corporate operators just aren't, they don't make a place. Again,
I'll throw something out.
You said, well, I'll just finish the thought.
Sure.
corporate operators don't make a place feel authentic, like you said. And Buffalo Wild Wings is like the epitome of corporate. But go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard developers and city leadership over the years
Yeah.
constantly, hey, we need more daytime activity. We need more daytime activity. And then they would talk about the nightclubs. Oh, well, these nightclubs are only open till 10 p.m. What we need, the answer was always, we need to force people to have longer hours. Like if you're going to be a nightclub, you have to be open this many. There's stuff on the books that would say, like, you can't just be open from 10 to 3 Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We're going to force you to be open longer because we want you to contribute more to the area to help the daytime activity. I've never thought that made any sense at all. But what I do think makes sense is not to, I think there's nothing wrong with the nightclubs and that kind of nightlife, but I think when we lump in music venues like Crowbar or like New World when it was there, or like the Orpheum, into that nightlife category, we're making a big mistake. Because at the end of the day, if you're the type of business that is a concert venue that does doors at either 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or even 8 o'clock, even though I'm over by 11:30, 12 o'clock, and I might only be open for actual business 25 hours a week, it's a proven fact that a business like mine is an anchor business for daytime retail, for restaurants, for the hotels, and for nighttime pubs. The people that come to a concert spend money in all those places.
100%.
So, I think part of the answer is to have these type of anchor businesses that draw in different people every single time they're open, just because they're open. Because that person is not the type of person that goes to Ybor City on a Friday or Saturday night every single week, or for dinner every single week. But what they will do is, if they know that they're coming to, 40 concerts a year, and 30 of those are in Ybor, they're going to plan around that, and they are going to shop at La France, or they're going to get a hotel room at Hotel Hyatt, or they're going to get beer at the end of the night at the Dirty Shame or the Reservoir Bar. So I think having more anchor businesses that are locally owned, that support the other businesses in the district, is what matters. And then offering up retail space to people at affordable levels that can have different, diverse elements of creativity to capture the people that are coming in. You don't want, the same way you don't want, a dozen nightclubs in an area that all doing the same thing. You got to have diverse retail too.
You also need people living in the district, more people. The more people that live in the district, the more demand there is for like the daytime activity people talk about,
Right. Well, that's the plan. I mean, the moving in of the residential is already there, right?
Oh, how do you feel about that? I mean, we're talking a lot about businesses, right? Nightlife, daytime activity comes up.
I think that residential moving in, that there's no problem with that. I think the problem is, how are we marketing what Ybor is, or what Ybor is going to become? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what if, okay, so let's say you move in 2,000 residents, but every time we turn around, we're saying Ybor is not this, it's this, or Ybor is going to become this. Who are these residents? Do they want the nightlife? Do they love live music? Like, are
there festivals or any sort of like street fairs that are music oriented? Like, is there a local venue music where people are playing music on the sidewalk and stuff like that? Like, what are cool things the city could do to showcase that lifestyle to the people that live there, but also the new people moving there? David, you live in Ybor. Would you take your wife to like a dope street concert where there's like food? Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I mean, Tropical Heatwave used to be all over Ybor. It used to be, it started at the Cuban Club, but then for years, You had a stage there. You had a stage at the Ritz. You have a stage at my place. And it
Yeah.
was an urban core festival. It's where
Yes.
people walk around. I think the ability to do that in Ybor has always been there.
Yeah.
I think getting the right people to the table
Mm-hmm.
to make those things happen is important.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when we do these things, we source them out to people who maybe could use some other direction on it and some help, or it's completely one-sided to who's making the decisions. I take it back to our indie operators, our small businesses. Like, I think anytime you're doing something like that, having independent operators that do this for a living,
Mm-hmm.
the impetus of those conversations is extremely important.
It's like, there's thousands and maybe 10,000, I think it's 7,500 new residences are planned, right? How do you get those people to understand the history of Ybor City, the history I'm passionate about, which is the old history, like, my great grandparents and stuff like that. But there's history we were talking about earlier, going back decades, not a century, right? All these music venues, the counterculture of Ybor City, that's just important. I think it's cool. Some people might not. But listen, I think the way you share that story is you show it to people. Because if only people that are moving into the district or visit the district see some of the problems, whether it's homeless people hanging out and, there's nothing going on, look at all these empty storefronts, it's going to continue to build that negative connotation. But if every month or every weekend there was cool shit like a
Now
street.
you're talking about First Friday or something in St. Pete.
What's wrong with that?
I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but didn't they just say that it wasn't sustainable for them out there anymore either?
So
Like
what
they
can we
had
do, Tom?
problems in there.
What do we do? Because we both care about this place for different reasons, but we both care about it and we both want it to be successful. I think in the same way. I believe in the same way. I don't want corporate bullshit coming in. I don't want pure control. I want what I want is I want Ybor to be what it used to be, which was a diverse mix of small businesses and a community that was banded together, that gave a shit about their community. They were civically engaged. You bought the hardware from me. I went to go see concerts from you. That's what I want. I want opportunity for people.
Things need to be affordable.
Things need to be affordable.
I mean, I think the reason why we're here right now, and I'm friendly with a lot of these new places, but the reason why we're here right now is that the long-standing music venues that were in the district,
mm-hmm.
that everybody knows, are all leaving, and in their place has been brought in new entities, mostly owned and operated by much wealthier people that, aren't career people at this. I'm great friends with the owner of 1920. I want to try to help him, but he's not a career venue owner. He did it because he's a music lover. And if we get to the point where the people that this is their career and they have the knowledge and they have the PhD in it, and they're in an area where they're like, well, I can't afford to be here anymore. I have to move to another part of the city so I can afford and do things the way I need to do them. Once that's, what Ybor is, that authenticity now is trying to be replicated. And I personally, even though I want to help people, I don't want to work for anybody. Like if I'm going to do a venue, I want to own my own venue. And if you're telling me that this is how much it's going to cost me and I can't buy a building in Ybor City because the only people that can buy buildings in Ybor City are the ultra wealthy, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I think that's a hard fact that we need to accept.
No, the sellers of those properties need to accept that, because I've tried to make some stuff happen, and I think some people are.
Not everybody wants to rent for the rest of their lives. I certainly don't want to rent for the rest of my life, knowing that I invested 20 years, 25, including the years at the Masquerade, into an area where now I feel like I'm being priced out of my market.
The problem with the unaffordability is that there's so many market-driven conditions that make it that way, and it's very hard for the local government to have a finger on that. What they could do is adjust the land development code to make it a hell of a lot easier for a little coffee shop or a little restaurant or a little music venue to legally do what they need to do and not be held down by red tape where you basically have to be a millionaire to even start something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big problem all across the city. It's not just Ybor, but even in South Tampa and what a lot of people call the rich part of town. You should see some of the commercial corridors. They're atrocious. And they're atrocious because if you buy a commercial building and you have the current codes that exist today and you go to renovate that building and bring it up to code, it's basically illegal. You're not going to make the parking code. You're not going to meet the setback code. You're not going to meet this and that. And by the time you meet the code, you spend $1.5 million doing it. So 100 and, change, 140, 120 years ago, like when my great grandparents were in Ybor, everybody had the opportunity. The little kid could be sweeping the floors of a bodega, and then eventually he buys his own little bodega. It was like enterprise, right? It's not even just Ybor or Tampa. That's like the American story,
Right?
It's enterprise. If more people can have opportunity, I think these problems we're talking about can solve itself. But the problem is people don't have the opportunity because it's so damn expensive. And the kid in East Tampa that wants to build something or develop something, he can't because it's so expensive. I've had them on the show. The people in Ybor City struggle. I had on Joanna from Coyote Ugly. That's her name, right, David? Joanna, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about her longevity there. The only reason she has that longevity because she owns the real estate.
Yeah, I saw
She's
that
like, I
episode.
would have gotten pushed out long ago if I didn't own this real estate. She says the smartest thing I ever did was made that deal all those years ago. Can you imagine today if she had to buy that property? Or can you imagine a new person? Because look, the reality is there's people that move to Ybor because it's cool and they want to be a part of it. And they get here and they're like, I can't even afford to be a part of this and start a business here.
Yeah.
And through the land development code, if we can have less red tape. And by the way, the biggest developers have challenges with this too, trying to figure this out. So if the big guys have these issues, these little small businesses have these problems too.
Right.
But that's one tool the city could use to make things more affordable, is just make the barrier to entry lower for people to start small businesses. Also too, small business grants. Instead of spending 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever it is, $1 million on a particular project, maybe take some of that money set aside and give small businesses grants. Businesses that have been there. I think that's legal through the CRA. You can do small business grants. Certainly the city can do small business grants.
I mean, if right now, and I know there is some small business grants, but a lot of that's for facades and stuff. I think, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. Yeah, we need startup grant. We need money to not only help people start up their small businesses, but also if they're not sustainable, grant programs that can help make that operator whole. Because, I don't think with the way the economy is right now and with the way inflation is and all the change we're seeing in our city, that it's just bad operators that are unsustainable.
Oh no.
There's so many really good operators that just can't make ends meet right now that they're forced to sell. And I think that before we do anything, we have to figure out how to lift up those operators that have been contributing for years and years and years to make it so they can stay and continue to do the work they need to do.
100%. Also from A to B, right? It's like a few years ago, we're in this, you said it when we first hopped on here, that Ybor's in this transition, identity crisis. What did you say exactly?
I said we're in a transition phase, but I feel like we're struggling to find our identity.
Yes. And we can't stay in that phase for too long because that's where people get crushed. And I think if you parse things out or if you look out over 20 years, you can maybe imagine what that district will look like and all these residences and who knows, right? And over the last few decades, we all kind of knew what Ybor was. We had our fun, but from now until the next 5 years or 10 years, that short transition period, what happens? And what has happened is you've had all these changes of ownership. You've had people wanting to start businesses that weren't able to for basically political reasons. And so you have a lot of vacancies and you have a lot of these businesses leave. And so that doesn't make things better for the existing businesses. It makes them worse. There's less people, there's less foot traffic, there's less just people in general. And if you have a business in the district and there's less people and businesses are shutting down, it provides this negative connotation and people start thinking of Ybor in a negative way. Ybor already had the safety issue. Everyone said safety, it's not safe to go there. I would never send my kids there. We get that comment on our content all the time. And we've tried to combat that any way we can. I'm always like, go check it out. Go get lunch, go get dinner, go see a show, go check it out. People have also asked, how can we help? Like, we love Ybor. What can we do? I'm like, spend time there.
Yeah.
Go to the businesses, spend your money there. If you have friends coming into town, tell them to stay in some hotels in Ybor and enjoy it. At the end of the day, we need people. I think what you said earlier was really smart about the people coming in. There's a level of maybe respect or knowledge that should be had. It's a very sensitive place. It's sensitive for people like me who are, my family came here and immigrated to Ybor City. So I kind of have that historic lens, right?
For sure.
And then you in your enterprise, right, in your community. What's cool about Ybor is there's all these different stakeholders and all these different people that have a love for the district for different reasons. And that's a damn good place to start. Like, there's a lot of love for the district. I don't personally think it's conflicting. I think that it should just be, I think the biggest challenge is if the new people move here, and you kind of made this, you alluded to this. If new people move here and they don't recognize all of those different aspects of the district,
right,
that's where it gets dangerous. That's where it turns into something that it's not. And then you're not happy and I'm not happy.
And that's what I think, like I said, when I first got here in 2001, meeting Don Barco over at King Corona and having somebody like that, him and Joe Howden, to tell me, about the history of Ybor City, why Ybor is important, how special it is, and Max Herman, now that he does he does an excellent job and stuff. He does really good, but it was really, I felt like, because those same bad stories were there in 2001. The difference was we had so many people in the district that, I believe at least, that saw the beauty of Ybor, not only recognized the history, but looked at what was today and said, what do you mean? This place is great. You know what I mean? And I think that when you do have something like the pandemic that happened, which, I mean, you could just look, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at who the existing businesses were in 2021 compared to what the existing businesses are now in 2026. It's night and day. A lot of those places aren't there anymore. It's completely different. So when I say we're struggling to find our identity, you have all these new people that have come in. Some of them courted to come in. I don't know if you have that same level of small business owner in the district now that is proud of the district, that's happy with the district, that understands the history and that understands where we are today and where we go to the future. From a personal standpoint. Business standpoint is separate, because when you're trying to make money, which everybody wants to make money, you could sit here and say, hey, I came to this neighborhood, I need this, fix this, and you're just trying to get your shit together for you. I'm concerned about that we don't have the ambassadors on the ground in our district that we used to, stop by stop up and down 7th and 8th Avenue, and I think that's got to be accounted for somehow. Like when you have that big of a transition, what that does to the district in that sense.
Max Herman and everything that he talks about, and all that history stuff is really important. But I feel like this might be, I might be going out on a limb, and this is just a feeling, but it feels like Ybor in many ways is more dead now than it was either when I was growing up or from what I remember not that long ago. I went on Max Herman's podcast. I know you were on that podcast too.
Yep.
That episode's coming out, I don't know, a few weeks, whenever they get around to editing it, I guess. But we were talking about, like, I have a story. I was in Ybor one Gasparilla, after Gasparilla, and I was at Gas Bars, and I was at the outside bar, and I look over and I see my dad. And like, I told that story because that's like what Ybor is to me. It's like you could be like a lawyer from South Tampa and find yourself in Ybor. You know, you could be the prim and proper person. You could find yourself there. You could be living in the Heights and come down. It was just like always this place where everybody would go. My dad had his retirement party there. My grandfather had his 90th birthday party in Ybor. It's like our family would always go there to party and have fun. It's where I saw a lot of movies as a kid growing up. Mm-hmm. And I still take my family there. We go to dinner all the time. We love Samurai Blue. Yeah. Best sushi in town. And what I feel could happen in that gap period that I'm talking about, that transition period, is that we could lose so much that people like me and other people from Tampa that like Ybor and go to Ybor, those people might stop going because there's just not enough to do.
No, I mean, right now, like I said, I've been out there for 25 years.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday nights, Ybor is crazy.
Right.
I mean, it's healthy, unhealthy. It's just very busy on Fridays and Saturday nights. I have never seen it where literally, Sunday through Thursday, there can be nights where I'm like, man, if I didn't have a concert tonight, there would be nobody out here.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to support these other businesses. That's why I keep calling venues like mine anchor businesses, because if I can do a concert on a night where people normally wouldn't have been out there, it can help places like Rizzoi or Bernini or La France stay open the amount of hours they want to stay open, because we're injecting customers into the district. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I've never seen it where, except for Friday and Saturday night, it is so desolate and barren.
More than ever.
More than ever, for sure. I mean, you could ask other people on 7th, but I think that would be, I think most people would admit that, and
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I've felt. Yeah.
Once again, I don't think that's necessarily because we're not focusing on the daytime. I mean, there's plenty of businesses out there that right now are open for daytime. I think that some of the problems are, number one, we have less venues like mine, like I talked about. You go from having myself, Orpheum, New World, Czar, all these places that on any given night, if 2 or 3 of us all have concerts, or if one of us has a concert, you're going to drive this artsy crowd into the area that is coming to spend money, that is in a good mood, that's excited. That, and I think the parking, man. I begged them. I said, do not do this. And I think the moment we started charging for parking out there, aggressively too.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is no secret, the city, I've been very vocal about this. We are so aggressive with the parking. Not only are we charging at all hours, and then the evening, the lots are incredibly expensive. Once again, I know that's not the city, but once you start charging on the street, you give people like 717 license to say, okay, well, I'm going to up my rate now. So you've got all this incredibly expensive parking no matter where you go. So like, let's say you're here, you're on your lunch break, you want to go down to Ybor to get a bite to eat over at one of the restaurants. And well, now I got to pay to park over here. And if you're a minute late in getting back to your vehicle, you got a $30 ticket, because they're, like I said, aggressively ticketing people. It's just the friendliness I feel like that we had in our district, and the welcoming aspect of our district, I felt also kind of disintegrated when we started charging for parking the way we did. And there is parking options out there, but for whatever reason, and I brought this up too, you know, with the CAC board stuff, like we're not actively marketing what the options are. Like we need to do a better job of saying, yeah, sure, we charge for parking here, but if you go here, 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 and here, there's remedies to that can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe part of it is because the YCDC is kind of defunct now and stuff too, but I don't feel like we have an Ybor voice that is uniform that can talk about all the positives. There's different entities like that try to stand up, or different individuals that try to stand up, but there's no uniform message coming out of Ybor City.
Until now.
It's starting right now.
Let's do it. What the fuck else are we doing, man? Like we've been here a long, long time. I mean, I was born in Tampa. I was gone for 15 years, but I moved back in 2017. I really, really care about this city. Mm-hmm. And you've done business and you've lived here a long time too. The fuck else? Like, let's figure this out, man. Like, whatever you want to do. You started that show, Current Conversations.
Yeah.
That's a great start, having those conversations. That's why I wanted to come on the show, promote it.
I enjoyed having you on the show.
Yeah. And I'm enjoying this conversation too. And I think that the last thing I want is for these groups to get siloed and everyone, it's like we're all eating each other and everyone's trying, no, the history is more important. No, the last 20 years were important. Like, that's not what this is about. It just needs to be about everybody. It needs to be about holding the city accountable for these things. Like you mentioned parking. Dude, I went to the Winter Village with my family. We roll up, wife, 2 kids, you get the strollers out of the car, you pay for parking, we go down there. I'm like looking at my watch the whole time, like, oh, parking. I'm like, okay, 8 minutes left. Let's head back to the car. They fucking ticketed me.
They're right there.
Within 120 seconds, less than 2 minutes of me getting back to my fucking car, I had a ticket on it. And you know what I thought? Why even pay at all?
Right.
Why even pay at all?
Russian roulette.
Just fucking ticket me and I'll leave it there for 6 hours.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Or I'll take my chances.
It's insane.
Because now I've already spent $15 wherever, and now I got $30 on top of it.
I'm like, okay, I guess I'm donating to the city's parking fund.
I can't tell you. I mean, I reserve my spaces for the tour buses and the vans, which are...
And you get tagged.
Which are going to create people that are going to come out and pay to park. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten tickets for parking.
And you've already reserved
2 weeks ago, we had a massive concert, drove tons of people in, and I had to pull up behind for a very short period of time the trailer of the tour bus, and I was like maybe half a foot behind the little sign that says no parking past this point. And they clearly know it's my truck too. And I come out and I had a $30 ticket because I was a little bit past that sign, and they know I just spent $1,300 that month on parking. Like, there should be a class.
Something has happened
for these public servants.
Yes.
that says, listen, we have to be customer friendly, or else their instructions are not to be. That we are going to punish people every chance we get. Which
that's the exact.
I think that is exactly what they're being told.
I have no doubt,
because I've complained about it.
I have no doubt.
Said, we can't do this.
The instruction is have a heavy hand. There's no doubt. Multiple places,
which is ridiculous.
Multiple places throughout the city. I was in. We were going to a smoothie shop. I was meeting my wife in Hyde Park Village, Clean Juice, and I parked in a really nice spot. I'm not blocking anybody, a good spot. But there's a city code that says, oh, you can't park within 10 feet of a driveway, which is that's a ridiculous policy. Because if you look all over the city, there's driveways everywhere.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to park anywhere if that was actually enforced. And this guy's like, yo, you can't park there. I'm like, really? Like, I'm trying to go spend my money at this little small business, who I think is actually for sale. I don't know what happened to them. I'm not speculating, but like, small businesses need help right now. Right. If you're visiting a small business in this city, maybe you should be able to validate that for half off parking. Something.
There should
But to have the government right now shouldn't have a heavy hand on anything.
no, all of our mechanisms.
Local government needs to help people right
all
now.
of our mechanisms should be, how do we strengthen everything?
Yes.
I'm so sick of saying this, but I say it on every interview I do, from the ground up. Because right now, our smallest everything, whether that's our smallest residents,
Yep.
that are rent or own their homes, or our smallest businesses, our smallest music venues, they're all struggling the most. So if the end, the end plan is let's punish these people while we continue to try to grow development, it makes no sense to me. And what's even worse is when I brought up the parking to city leadership or the parking leadership, it's, well, we're trying to drive people to use more public transit. You got a lot of balls because, then here's an idea. Let's get our public transit to where it needs to be before we start ticketing the shit out of every single person. When people themselves right now have tight budgets, it's hard to get people to go out. There's a concerted effort already by outside forces, not just locally, but around the country, to keep people behind their computers. If you have people that are actively saying, I want to go out tonight and support a small business in my city, and they're actually doing that, the last fucking thing we should be doing is making it more difficult for them to do that. We should be embracing those people and helping those people and telling them, yes, visit our city, go out, support small business, don't stay home. But what do? Every time somebody goes out, we give them a reason to stay in.
So was that the actual answer from the city? Like, hey, we want to get more people to ride public transit.
Public transit is what I've been told every single time. Every single time is what I've been told. It's public transit.
Where was I supposed to take public transit when I got ticketed to taking my family to the Winter Village to go see my little friend at his little coffee kiosk?
Public transit / Uber. I don't know. Because, all we have, what do we have? We have the trolley, we have the bus, and we've got
Dash.
Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, scooters. Scooter bikes. Yeah. No,
doesn't seem like the
it's
best.
It's just the worst timing ever. It's the worst time to put any kind of pressure on a small business. And you're right. So many people have incentives today to stay inside, order Uber Eats, put on Netflix, order Amazon. It's getting from the stories of my grandparents of what the community was with all these different families that had small businesses that interacted to one another. Shopping small business was not a choice. Shopping small business was just that was what you did. Today, spending money on small businesses is a choice. You don't have to do that.
Right. Because everything's so convenient.
So it's like, why not create an incentive structure and reward structure to where if someone's going to go spend money at a local business, they're at least not penalized.
We disincentivize is what I'm saying too. It's like at least keep the playing field legal. We disincentivize.
We disincentivize it, like I said earlier, through that antiquated code. The city's rewriting it right now. That's a good thing. So let's hope it's where it needs to be. But some of man, some of these red tape issues with this is 3 inches off and you got to come in here and read it. All of that is bullshit. There's a life safety component that's important. You want to make sure people are safe in these buildings, but some of these codes are so out of hand where you might have someone that lives in this district that wants to open up something. But by the time they find a space, make a lease, which ain't cheap, products and inventory and staff and then the build out, it's like you literally have to be kind of rich to start a small business today, or a heavy loan right now, which is not cheap either. Interest rates are still pretty high.
Yeah.
This might legitimately be, and I'll ask a question, but this might legitimately be the hardest time ever to start a small business. Let me ask you this. If you were going to start Crowbar today, well, I guess we can talk about what's next for you, but could you do it? Could you start from the ground up?
I could do it. I couldn't do it the way I did
With
when
the
I
means
started
you
Crowbar.
had 20 years ago.
No, but I'm lucky now, not lucky, I guess, because you put in the work. You know, I've worked extremely hard over the last 25 years. And
Yeah,
what
man.
I've learned over the years in my knowledge of the industry, my knowledge of what it takes to get from A to Z, what the factors are that will impact me, how to get around those things, who to talk to. I feel like I know so much more now at 52 than I did at 32, or I did at, you know, 27 when I first got to Ybor City and ran the masquerade, you know, or I did at 24 when I got to Atlanta and ran the masquerade over there. You know, I just know a lot more now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel that because of those almost, you know, 3 decades of knowledge in this industry and over 25 years here in Tampa, that if I do try to do another venue after Crowbar, that I would be able to put a plan in place to successfully do that. I can't imagine
Yeah.
not operating an under 500 cap venue in the city. I think it's desperately needed. I think it's a challenge that I'm up to. I would not do it in Ybor City. I hate to say that. I just wouldn't. I think that there's, you know, it's hard enough to protect your own vision, let alone trying to fit. And this is one of the problems, I think, when it comes to development. When you can develop an area, you got to leave the creative expertise to the people that are going into those spaces. When you're trying to make sure everybody fits into a box that you're trying to place them in, you're cutting the knees out from some of the most beautiful things that are possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would never, at this point in my career, I wouldn't want to go to an area where I have to check all the boxes for, you know, what that development's supposed to be, in spite of what I know my venue could be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately in Ybor right now, you know, the parking's crazy. Noise ordinance issues are only going to grow as residential comes in. We're not, you know, bus parking is always going to be difficult. You can't get your own parking. So if I do have a space where I'm going to have 100 different vehicles coming in, you know, that they want to park, that they don't have to worry about getting a parking ticket, that's off the limits
Mm-hmm.
in Ybor City. You know, most of our venues that we see that build around the country end up being in areas like what Ybor was at the time, where there's a need for it,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything grows around them. The problem is, once those areas get super attractive, you tend to be the people that get priced out and forced out of the market. So if I am going to do anything after Crowbar, I want to protect myself and put myself in an area that I can own that plot of land, I can have my own parking, and I can hopefully be in an opportunity zone or a space then where other young businesses say, I want to open next to that guy,
Right.
because he is going to drive just enough business into this market for us all to be successful, and we'll build our own community. And for me, that's my head right now, aside from wrapping up a legacy of 20 years at a great location, is looking towards the future of what I can do to make sure that this Live Nation versus indie operator DIY community space discussion has the right ending.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether or not Live Nation ever comes into this market or not, I want to make sure that there's a smaller room option that is protected 1,000%, that can't be touched.
You know, you bring up something interesting. All of the residents moving in naturally are going to push against the noise and the entertainment and the music venues and the clubs. Like all those new condos in downtown St. Pete, they have a problem with like Janice and all those, you know, all the stuff like that. And I wonder why that first Friday didn't work. I wonder if it has to do with the new condos and the new people living downtown, if they've sort of
Not
lobbied
sure.
the city and said, hey, we don't really want this anymore.
Well, and I'm not sure the answer to that.
I don't know either. I'm
You should
completely,
invite them on.
yeah, probably.
Okay, and I'll come on to because I'd love to know the answer. But that's why I kind of touched on it earlier, and we talked about on current conversations too, about what are those residents going to want? How are you marketing Ybor? I think that here's my whole point. If I moved to New Orleans,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and I knew I was going to be by Frenchman Street or Bourbon Street or whatever, I would know I'm moving in because I love nightlife, because I'm coming into a vibrant area. You know, if we were telling people Ybor City and the future is going to be the best food and live music and dancing and all these things, which I believe it should be. I believe that should be our future, along with great retail. We would have many people that would move here that would understand it's going to be loud, and I'm okay with that because I want the vibrancy. But instead, when we're marketing these things and these people are coming in, and sometimes you see an ad for Ybor City, it feels like they're marketing in a way of this is what we want it to become, because it's not just good enough right now as it is. And I think that's problematic. You know, and it's got to be a fine line as a developer that you would be towing to get to where you want it to go, right? But I think that the comms on that, like the communication on that, is vitally important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're saying you love this district, but everything that's happening right now is trash, where does that leave you? It leaves you with the people that loved coming to the district 20 years ago and no plan for the future.
Do you feel like that's what is happening now? I mean, do you feel like they're not?
I feel like anytime anything bad happens in Ybor City,
Uh-huh.
nobody picks up the responsibility for something when it happens. When we just had this car crash
Right.
in Ybor, that story started in November during the time of year when small business owners depend on making money. It's the holidays.
Right.
It's when people open up their wallets. They're happy. We could have started that story and ended that story and said, this was a horrible incident. We're going to look into, you know, this vehicle clearly was not in Ybor City. They were chased off the interstate. And we're going to look at, you know, why this chase happened so further. But aside from that, this was not an Ybor issue. Somebody unequivocally could have stood up over and over again and said, Ybor City is safe. This has nothing to do with Ybor City. Could have happened anywhere. Let's change the narrative and focus on why it really happened. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
you know?
no. Instead, they talked about brick
all they talked
streets
about was
and-
brick streets.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
what if
didn't
we
get
put
that
in
either.
bollards? The neighborhood association, when I just talked, the mobility department was there too. They're still talking about these bollards. And when they talk about the bollards, I've said a million times, I've told them, listen, you can't make a solution that you know isn't going to solve the reason for it happening. If we were worried about cars cruising and stuff and then going a little bit fast, and we thought the bollards would help, that's one thing. But you could ask anybody in the mobility department, if we put the bollards over there on the corners and a car was going 70 miles an hour, would this stop it, or would the car fly, would shrapnel fly all over the place and people still get hurt? They're going to tell you, yeah, they'd still get hurt. It wouldn't stop the vehicle all the way. I know that because I've asked them and I've watched other people ask them. But the answer is, well,
Same as the
we got to
curfew.
do something. We got to do something. The curfew.
Right.
When we had the shooting, this wasn't anybody that was in any venue. This wasn't anybody who was going to the businesses, but it was, hey, there was a shooting on 7th. Ybor's dangerous. The full focus is going to be on this is why Ybor, quote unquote, needs change. Even though it was a young, I think, 14-year-old kid that for every reason had this gun, wasn't going into any businesses, was just walking around on the street. You know, it had nothing to do with Ybor itself. It was, you know, hey, let's go on the street and do our thing. But once again, every time anything bad happens, if our game plan is to blame existing businesses or blame Ybor as it exists today, We are telling the public that Ybor is not good right now, and it's only going to be good whenever we finish this next project or this next development.
People suffer from bad reactionary policies. Like a bad reactionary policy is that frickin' brick street on 7th. I'm all for re-bricking 7th, but they've done it. Now, I don't know this for fact. I'm completely
We just did 2 more blocks.
I'm completely speculating. Let me just say that. That's either the shittiest re-bricking job or they've built it in a way that
They're going to
disincentive.
get mad at me.
That disincentive. Well, look, they don't want people cruising up and down 7th Avenue. So to me, it looks like they've built a crappy brick road so people don't drive down the road.
Well,
Now I suffer when I'm trying to go somewhere on the Ybor and I'm driving down.
it's bad.
It's like, dude, like you guys are same thing with the curfew, same thing with the ballers. It's like you're creating a reactionary policy that's not going to solve the issue, but people are going to suffer for it.
Right. But here's my question. Are these things by design? Like, are you using them? Are you using them? Because here's why I say that. I also, and this is why I said I'm going to get in trouble. I'm sorry, but I was against the bricking. I said, I think this is a bad idea. It got pushed through by vote. Now we're doing the bricking.
But why did you think it was a bad idea? Because it's bumpy or because
No, number one, because I think there's far better reasons to use that money. You know, it just
your
frustrates
sidewalks
me.
need help on Ybor.
Yeah, I mean, but we also, there's other parts that, I mean, we could, there's no sidewalks at all in East Ybor. There's these kids, when they get dropped off at school, they're walking on the street. There's people with motorized or not even motorized wheelchairs in the middle of the street because there's no sidewalks. And we're sitting here bricking for
A lot.
When I hear it, it's because we want to go back to the history, right? It's a vanity project. We want to, respect the past. I'm with you. I think one of the reasons why we chose to brick was because we thought it would be a natural deterrent to the cruising because they don't want people on 7th Avenue. But that in and of itself is an example of we're making a decision with millions of dollars for one reason when we're saying it's for something else.
Was that right there, that piece of it, disincentivize cruising? Is that public? Was that said in the meetings?
I can't say if that was said in a meeting. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say if it was said in a meeting. But
Well, my whole point is, if that's true, that's such bullshit, in my opinion. I think that you're creating a road that's uncomfortable to drive on
it does
and
disincentivize
spending
cruising.
millions and millions
Right.
of dollars just to get people to not cruise. I was just down there the other
I think
day.
it checks a couple boxes. And I think that I would definitely say 1,000%. I've had one-on-one conversations with people that said, yeah, but it's going to do this too, but it's going to do this too.
They already have a statute posted.
I know.
I know. Why don't they enforce?
But they don't enforce it.
Okay, enforce the law.
Well,
don't make everyone suffer. Same reason for the curfew. Enforce the law. Find out who the bad actors are. Arrest them. Prosecute them. Find out root causes. If you have a curfew and close down businesses, everybody suffers.
not everybody wants to have to do their job.
I can't help
I could also tell you that when things like, and I'm not going to mention any names, but when things like this come up about Live
Please
Nation,
don't. We've already gotten enough
I won't.
trouble.
I didn't even announce the names I said earlier, so I'm not going to name anybody. But even when the Live Nation thing come up, and I'm trying to have conversations with different people in the city about, listen, they're going to need this, they're going to need this. There were people I talked to that were like, yeah, but can't y'all try to work it out? Like, can't you get in a conversation with some of the people that are making the development and try to come up with a good solution? Because people that should be voting on whether or not letting them in is a good idea don't want to have to do their job either. So it's like, if we can solve it for you and we can sit there and say, oh, we came to an amicable agreement about this, now there's no need to go before the barrio, or there's no need to go before city council. People are cool with that, where I'm sitting here saying, listen, if it's your job to look at everything that you have in front of you and you have a large group of people that are telling you why they're against something, it should be the job of city council or a barrio commission just to say, yeah, we have a problem with this. It's wrong and it needs to be done right.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know,
this
I don't know
so
if we always do that. I think that sometimes we take things and we try to use them or weaponize them in a way to get the other outcome that we're looking forward to.
there's massive politics that play
Right.
into those decisions, which is unfortunate.
Shouldn't be.
But it's also never black and white. Obviously, it's there's all these different nuances, and there might be a reason that makes sense, but then you find out, oh, it's really not financially feasible to do it that way. I mean, these things are pretty complicated. But that the thing today you were at the barrio
Mm-hmm.
for the Live Nation venue that
Mm-hmm.
got basically continued over a tree,
Mm-hmm. The
and
old Grand Oak.
the best
Thank you,
I
tree.
think I well, it's not done yet, right? I think they're going to
There's
come
going to
back
be
in
they
July.
have to come back at July 28th.
Here's the I watched a few minutes of that. The best question was, why don't you relocate the tree? Like, that's the best conversation you could have. I'm all about compromise. It's like, well, what do we want to do? We want to preserve the trees. Yeah, it's this lot, David, where the Tico substation is. Yeah, zoom in. Where are we at? Right here. Yeah. So it's this big tree on the right. And the developer cannot reasonably remove the tree without totally kind of screwing up their plan in that building.
Mhm. There it
It's
is.
just, is it that one or is it the one in the back? I think it's this big one right here. And the question was, well, why don't you move it? And the lady at the city said, hey, look, it's possible. They've moved these huge trees before. They're thriving. Someone, the tree consultant for the developer, said that it's definitely possible, but with this particular circumstance, if they were to move it to the park. See, this developer, I've touted this developer before, and I probably always will, because so far what they're doing with these buildings and the design, the Paseo, the new city park, the new streetcar stop, they are trying to do the right thing.
Kettler.
Yeah. Kettler, Daryl Shaw, and there's like a collaboration type thing happening. But if you look at that facade of those buildings, they're beautifully designed. They respect the barrio. They're stair-stepping in height. Part of this area we're looking at on the left side is not in the historic district. That gasworks is kind of on the line. But back to the tree, it's like they were saying they could, if they take this tree and try to put it in the park, there's a 50-50 chance it could die.
Yeah.
And the big issue was crossing the streetcar track. I'm going to make a couple calls after the episode and dig deeper and see really what that.
They said it would be 6 figures too.
6 figures, which is pretty crazy to move a tree, but this thing is massive. So that
It's a big tree.
kind of checks out. But to talk about like those approvals, right, at the barrio or council, like that's where I think the community work could really get dialed in. Like, find that solution where the developer is satisfied or the business owner is satisfied with what they need to get out of this. And by the way, this isn't just like a Kettler thing. This is like a small person that wants to open up a little business, a little restaurant or a cafe or a music venue. They also have to have these interactions with the local government that
Right.
also could become politically contentious. So this is like the big elephant in the room, obviously, in Ybor is gasworks and all this. But it digs to a deeper issue of that community collaboration. Like, hey, look, if that tree could be moved, let's try to find, the city should try to find a solution. Like, what if the city came to that developer and was like, we have a perfect place for that tree, and we're going to give you a $25,000 grant, or like, we're going to make we're going to
handle it.
we're going to, like, dude, let's go. Like, I think the idea that you can stop a private property owner from doing what they're legally obligated or legally allowed to do is going to be impossible. And they're entitled to build what they've built here. I mean, there's no getting around that. If they have the entitlement ready, the last thing I think a lot of people want is for them to remove the tree and build what they're going to build anyway, or be denied and then sue the city and win, which has happened a lot. Tampa spent millions and millions of dollars on attorneys and lawsuits. They just got sued again on the Harbor Island deal. And so that community work, like maybe the city has a role right there for that specific thing. Maybe the CRA could have a role. The CRA says, hey, look, we want to buy with CRA dollars this piece of land in East Ybor. East Ybor doesn't have a lot of good parks. The CRA, the CRA's spent a lot of money, tens and tens of millions. What if they spent $500,000, $1 million on a land acquisition and paid another $100,000 to remove the tree and put it in a new park? Now I'm totally spitballing here, but the point is there's a community-driven effort where the business, the development community works with the city, and both of those entities work at the will of the people. I think when you have the rub between the two and both sides are hard-lined, ultimately one side will be unhappy versus compromise in the middle creates a situation where both people can at least move forward hand in hand. And that's frankly what the district is to me. The district is a diverse group of people all working together, or at least it was. And I think what it should be.
They had said one other thing too, representatives from Kettler, when they were up there saying, I can't remember his exact words, but at some point he said something about that this had already come up. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did you get to hear the little thing?
I don't think so.
He was saying like, well, the last time we came up, everybody was aware of what the variances were, and we've taken everything into consideration, which brings me to, and I just butchered that whole thing, but obviously there's been communication to get up to this point.
Sure.
So the way things move, I think is important too, because when you allow the public to start weighing in on stuff, but the public only gets privy to information after probably millions of dollars that have already been spent, I don't know if we do ourselves any favors. Like, knowing that change is coming early on, I think instead of waiting for the lights to be turned on, I think is a much better way of doing things too.
Yeah, the business community, the development community should probably start out communicating with neighborhoods first versus creating a project and kind of ramming it down a neighborhood's throat.
I mean, they very well probably.
And I'm not saying they did that.
And what I'm saying, I think that they probably talked to the neighborhoods too. I've heard that they met with the neighborhood associations.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
But I just wonder how much context was put into it, because as details emerge, that's when you have more and more people going, wait a second, what's going on here?
Well, we've tracked on the show, and I had on Stephanie Pointer, and I've had on some neighborhood people, and definitely talked to a lot offline. And whenever you have, I mean, this is probably natural. I'm sure like Austin went through this, or Charlotte or Nashville, where you have a hyper growth city. And so there's a lot of development. There's a lot of things happening. People get it. All of the negative externalities of growth affect people. And so those people kind of rally up together and they say, we don't want this built here. We don't want this built there. And they're affected for different reasons, whether it could be traffic, it could be they own a different, whatever it is. But what I'm seeing now is a lot of developers are starting with neighbors first. That's what I meant earlier. I didn't mean that Kettler wasn't communicating. I know they've been in deep communications with the community, but I'm talking generally. Like, it seems like developers now recognize the importance of working with neighborhoods more so than they did, let's say 3-5 years ago. And it's because people show up to those hearings and are so vocal at those hearings and voice their opinions. That's the whole reason why that vote was continued today. If nobody showed up,
and there wasn't that many of us,
there wasn't that.
I didn't even talk.
I saw that. I was going to rewind.
I didn't talk.
You didn't talk. You just wanted to show face.
My shirt.
You just wanted to have your presence known.
I think sometimes when you see other people are talking, you don't always have to talk. Sometimes I'm so vocal that I thought to myself, I'm going to sit this one out because there's other new faces that are speaking, and I don't want to drown their voices out with my own. So,
That's beautiful.
I mean, it's that advocacy is very tough. So if you get other people that are stepping up that want to speak, I want them to talk.
I love that.
You know,
Yeah.
there's power in numbers.
100%.
You know, and I'm always going to do my thing anyway. So I don't want to, you know, squish anybody down that's trying to speak.
Well, let's talk about this project itself. Is there a scenario where you are, maybe not happy is the wrong word, but at least not opposed to some of this growth happening in Ybor? What I mean is, it's hard to look back over 20 years and say, oh, it was better back then. I think we all have rosy glasses of the past and nostalgia, but is there a way where you would be supportive of this music venue in Ybor? I mean, we've talked about the tree. This isn't really about the tree. We've talked about that operator, Live Nation, how they're a monopoly, and we've talked about the issues that come with that. But is there a solution or a setup where you would be supportive of a venue like that coming into the district?
If Venick Group hadn't already announced that they're building a 3,500 person venue in Water Street,
Yeah.
and this venue was not going to be operated by Live Nation, I would support it, because I think that our market can support one. And I would support the one that hasn't been found guilty of being an illegal monopoly. And I don't say that to be a smartass or anything. It's just fact. It's Live Nation twofold. Number one, they're either going to be broken up and punished in a way that we could find out a year from now that they're not allowed to operate any venues at all. Where's that going to leave us all the way down the road then? You know, we're going to be in big trouble, because now you've made this deal with them. They can't own and operate the venue. This other one's going through. Who's going to operate this? You know, so we at least owe it to ourselves to see how their punishment pans out. The other side of that, the flip side of that is, let's say the judge gives them a slap on the wrist. They continue to move the way they move. They dodge another bullet, and they start vertically integrating into this market. 5 years from now, that venue is going to hurt the Straz, the Tampa Theater, the Ritz, Janice Live, the 3,500 person venue down the street, venues like mine. Like, it's just going to hurt everybody around it. There's no market that Live Nation can show me that they go into when they do these type of things, that they lift up all the other venues around them. So we're basically willing to put all the money on this one place at the risk of everybody else in the market. And I can't get behind that. I can't get behind that Venick Room, you know, because I'd say, okay, we need a market this size. They're not going to try to take everything over. They're local themselves.
Right.
You
Is
know,
that the biggest piece for you?
Live Nation?
Yeah. Like,
Beyond a shadow of it. I mean,
yeah.
I can honestly say 1,000%.
Yeah.
It's the operator.
Right. Because let's be real. I mean, if someone wants to take their own private money, tens and tens of millions of dollars, and make a bet that they'll be successful in creating this venue. I told you before the show, like, again, you know, I'm sure they're looking at the data. I'm sure they understand that there's a need in the market for something like this, or else they wouldn't build it. They're taking a risk. All of it's a risk. It's a risk opening up a coffee shop, you know, but this is just a higher level of risk. They've probably done the data. So if it wasn't Live Nation, you're saying you could be supportive of a venue.
I am. I'm supportive of the VSG room right now.
Yeah.
Until there's a reason for me not to be supportive of it.
Mm.
But right now I'm supportive of it.
I want to look more into this Live Nation thing.
I think that's vitally important.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, and once again, I'm happy at this point that it's not hyperbole. You know, they were found guilty of being a monopoly. If you look at all the evidence in front of them of what they do when they vertically integrate into a market, you would see that even though their press release said that they care about the culture and rising tide lifts all ships and all these things, that they're not very supportive of the indie rooms in a market that they come into, that they
Who else
damage
could you,
them.
besides Live Nation, if Gasworks wants to do this and they've got the data and they can support those numbers, 4,300 seats, et cetera, and it wasn't Live Nation, who could it be? Or is Live Nation kind of the only one because they are a monopoly?
I mean,
usually monopoly
it's usually
means
either that or you go local, like VSG's local. And even though, and this is another point I can honestly make because it's the truth, when VSG announced that they were going to be opening, they said, we're going to own and operate this room, but we would bring in outside promoters. Live Nation does a lot of the booking in Benchmark Arena. Nobody's saying right now, at least, that Live Nation can't have a hand in booking.
Sure.
The whole point is if we allow them to vertically integrate where now they have a 4,000 person room in this market too, they're not going to book anything at any of these other rooms. And right now they still have a large control over the booking process in the entire country. So not only are we going to take away their ability or their need to book in other local independent rooms, we're going to give them their own room that they certainly are going to book exclusively. It's not like Live Nation's going to let any promoters into their room.
No, David, look up Live Nation monopoly, because how recent were they found? What is this? A federal jury in Manhattan declared Live Nation and its Ticketmaster subsidiary an illegal monopoly, finding them guilty of monopolizing live event ticketing in the large amphitheater market.
They were just found guilty. It was like, it had to be like less than 2 months ago.
So this is spearheaded by a coalition of over 30 states, which you talked about at the beginning of the show, could result in the structural breakup of the live entertainment giant. So if they are broken up, maybe the problem solves itself?
Well, no, because now you've still got this. I mean, you have to figure out what you're going to do with that land, right? I mean,
but that's all private. You know what I'm saying? Like if someone
but internally they have to be discussing this anyway, right?
Oh,
wouldn't you think?
I would imagine, yeah.
So maybe, when you talk to them, you should ask them what their backup plan is.
I'm definitely,
because I don't know what their backup plan is. I think that the fact that they're still, and I guess maybe that's just business, that they're still pushing forward so rigorously, believing that they will.
Here's Live Nation's response. So Live Nation denies the allegations, attributing industry costs to market forces rather than antitrust violations. Following the verdict, the company challenged the ruling and rejected the state's demands for a structural breakup, which would require divesting Ticketmaster, calling such requests performative and political. The penalties and remedy phase of the trial are currently ongoing in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Wow. And of course, these things could take years to play out.
And I'll tell you this too. It was funny because when I was at the Capitol about an hour before I was supposed to testify, I got word that I was going to be deposed by Live Nation. It was like they strategically messaged me right before to almost intimidate me that I was going to be deposed. And I was actually served papers yesterday. And so I'll have to do a
well, we're fucked, David. Now what?
Does this mean you guys are going to get deposed too?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, you should be all right. Not. But yeah, that's what they do. I mean, they saw I was testifying and now they deposed me, and now they're going to try to, we're going to have a virtual call. I can't remember what the date was, but they're going to probably do everything they can to try to diminish my statements, to poke holes in everything I say.
Well, we're definitely going to track this. Hit the NPR article.
I'm sure they're watching everything I say at this point.
Probably. But so with this court case, this is the thing to watch. So this is now in an appellate court, I would assume. Hold on. State and federal action. While the U.S. Department of Justice initially filed the lawsuit, it reached a private settlement just days into the trial.
Right. $280 million.
But go back, David, real quick, because it says, however, 33 states and the District of Columbia rejected the settlement and pushed forward to a unanimous jury verdict.
Right. That's what I told you.
Wow.
That was what we through NIVA, as soon as the federal government settled, we got on our meetings, we instructed concert goers, venues, promoters in every state. Hit up your state AG right now, email them. We had formed letters that people could click, click, click. I mean, we got tons of emails sent to those state AGs to keep them in the fight so this trial would go through, because we wanted the trial to go through. Because we knew if the trial went through, this jury would find them guilty, and they did. It was unanimous. They said, yeah, this is crazy. This can't happen anymore. So once again, that's going to be the next step, is going to be those AGs going to the judge and saying, based on X, Y, and Z, we believe that this is what should happen to them to create a free market again and a fair market. And that was one of the things I talked about when I was there. And to my right was that California AG. You know, what we want to see is we want to see them not just a split between Live Nation and Ticketmaster, but a split between Live Nation and Ticketmaster and every arm of their existence that they have. So the tours should be capped to minimal 50%, like where they can't control the majority of a tour, you know, like 50% tops. Ticketing separate. Eliminate the resale market, or at least cap the resale market. One of the things in there is we don't want them owning venues. Shouldn't be allowed to own a venue if you're going to do the tours and the promotions. You can't have your hands in all.
Do they own venues currently?
I mean, that's for years they were more on the arena and the stadium level, but now this is what they're doing. They're trying to pop up these 4,000 person venues all over the country. What's happening in Tampa isn't new. It's just we're the next market that they're trying to vertically integrate into it. So like when you said earlier about you know, well, what's, you know, if they
The competition
and stuff, this isn't a one-off. This is, you know, and it's something that they're actively doing now in different markets that they're trying to break into. They're trying to scale smaller.
So what's next? I mean, you testified in front of Congress. You're being deposed by Live Nation. They're serving you papers. You're not going to give up. I know that.
No.
So what's next in this process?
Well, I guess one's a local process and one's a national process, right? You know, so the national stuff with NIVA, you know, at this point, I'll see where that takes me. Locally, I think right now the focus is on the tree. The tree's a very powerful thing. But I also think it's just people paying attention, me with others getting the news out to people, letting people know that there is going to be zoning requirements. I mean, we know that they want to serve alcohol. It's not like they're going to open this up and not have alcohol in it, and the entire thing will need to be zoned for alcohol. That's a heavy lifting even of itself, I think. I think especially, you know, if you're a person in a neighborhood association which has, you know, fed into this work, eat, play, less alcohol, Ybor City,
sure,
you know, party district and more quiet and all these things, and you live south of 7th Avenue and you've been fed this whole, you know, more neighborhood, and now you realize that there could be 80,000 square feet wet zoned right to the south of you, and then 7th Avenue still on the north of you. I would have a lot of concerns. And if I was those people, I'd pay close attention to what's going on, because if this entire thing gets wet zoned and you have 4,000 people coming to concerts on that corner, when there's still questions about parking, public transit, noise issues, like the none of that is going to get past the door if they can't serve alcohol on that property. That's going to be very important to them.
I could buy it on 7th because those older buildings probably don't resonate sound as well. But also, that doesn't solve for the people exiting the building after, when they've already been drinking and it's late at night. And, you know, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is going to be fascinating to watch play out. It really is, because it's like, in so many ways, this Ybor transition has came down to these small little issues. I mean, like the tree
I think this is very confusing for people.
with those two different schools of thought with,
Yeah.
hey, no liquor here, but then here. Yeah.
I mean, we just talked about, if you're one of those people that, this isn't even the newer residents, there's a large saturation of older residents
Mm-hmm.
that live south of 7th Avenue that have always believed that Ybor should be more daytime, more quiet. I don't like the noise at night. And so you've been supporting development that checks those boxes for you. Imagine your surprise when all of a sudden this comes up. And that's, I think that there's going to be a lot of people, the enemy of the enemy is my friend, or the strange bedfellows
Sure.
quote, whatever it is.
Sure.
I think that there's, you don't have to be for everything I'm for, but if this has been a concern of yours with nightlife, with traffic, with parking, and now you hear this news that this is, it's a huge amount of land to be devoted to this. And you have a little house south of 7th on 5th, 6th, 4th. I would be very concerned. And I think, when you are advocating, what I always tell people is you need to show up. I think if you have music lovers that on one side want to save indie rooms, care about fair ticketing, this is going to be a big fight for them. But the beauty of it is we're also going to get neighborhood association people, homeowners, residents of the area that don't really care about the indie music scene and don't go to concerts and aren't worried about tickets and stuff.
Sure.
But they're concerned about, is there going to be a car parked on my front lawn late at night? Is it going to be loud every time there's a concert because there's 3,000 people letting out into the street? How is this going to work?
Right.
And hopefully between multiple concerns from different angles, we get the resolution we need to the plans coming forth in the future.
Can't argue with any of that. I mean, that is truly fascinating, because a lot of the people that have been in Ybor, that have lived there for a long time, that have been in opposition to some of the liquor licenses, to some of the clubs. And again, like even people that have lived there for a while that want the crime rate to go down.
Right.
They
I would
want
feel completely blindsided if it was me. If I was one of those people, I'd be
Right.
like, well, this isn't exactly fair. And then on top of it, it's like, well, wait a second. We put all this strain on our local businesses, but we're willing to allow this monstrosity to come in, because it's a huge development. I mean, if that's not an example of the different moves we see in our city already, that many people say, hey, listen, why are we constantly, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Why are we constantly focused on this uber large development when we all want these other things? This is another example of where I think a lot of people in the community, regardless of other things they can't agree on, should be able to say, wait a second, let's pause this. Let's pump the brakes on this for a second, because we need to know exactly what we're getting into before we do this any further. I think it's got huge ramifications across the board, and we need to be very, very careful. And I can guarantee to you, the people over at VSG are probably concerned too. This is, you've got two developments trying to happen at the exact same time where neither existed, and they're with a half mile from each other.
Yeah, pull up the post we wrote about, because we thought that was really interesting too, where it shows the distance. Like as soon as the news came out, we put this up because we're like, wow, that's a direct
It's
comparable.
1 mile.
And they're almost the exact same size. They have sort of the
Live Nation room's just a little bit bigger.
Just a little, yeah. No, those are really interesting points. And so here's the thing, though. They are entitled to build it. It's just a matter of who and how. Meaning, like, I believe the zoning, the PDA, like they have these vested rights. They're allowed to build that amount of square footage. Like, they can legally absolutely build this, but it's a question of these little smaller things: the tree, the architecture, the look, the feel, the barrio.
Would they build it if Live Nation wasn't the partner?
I think that's the most important
You know what I
question.
mean? And why then are you building it because Live Nation's the partner?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that's Live Nation. And once again, I haven't been in any of these meetings,
Sure.
but I know what it looks like when they go into a market. You've got a developer. He's got a piece of land. He's like, what do I do with this piece of land? They actively come in and they're like, listen, we'll come in. We're going to do X, Y, Z. You don't have anything to worry about. And we're going to invest this much money into ourselves. And they can do that because they're this publicly traded company. And once again, up until recently, they were doing everything legally. Now we know that they're an illegal monopoly. So if you're sitting there and your choice is to use them because they're the ones that can do it, maybe we should pump the brakes on this a little bit.
And again, that ruling is within the time period when this was all announced and where we are now. That ruling you said, I think, was only what, a month ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
It just happened. And like I said, I was in DC in April of 2025 when they were building the case. You know, so it's been
ago.
over a year that this has really been bubbling up. I mean, I would say that it's been at least 40 years since people look at Live Nation and said this is a problem. If you look at when Pearl Jam went first and try to, you know, speak up against them, I mean, Live Nation's always kind of had this.
What's the story with Pearl Jam?
Pearl Jam went, I think it was back in the 90s, and same thing. They complained that Live Nation had too much control over the industry, that they were going to make ticket prices too expensive, that they had too much control. And this was before the Ticketmaster Live Nation merger even happened.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go anywhere. Pearl Jam kind of got crushed a little bit, and Live Nation continued going their way.
And this was
stronger.
Early 2000s. When was this?
I think the Pearl Jam, we'd have to look it up. We'd have to Google it. I think the Pearl Jam, when they were speaking up against them, I think it was still in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And then I believe.
No, just do Pearl Jam Live Nation. That should be a good Google prompt.
Live Nation?
Yeah, Live Nation.
Let's see. There was a lawsuit too. Huh. Pearl Jam's upcoming live dates are premium ticketed through Live Nation. Oh, they use Live Nation.
They do now, yeah.
It's not pulling up.
Maybe do Pearl Jam Live Nation court or hearing. Yeah.
Huh. Court hearing.
924. There you go.
94?
94.
Holy
right.
shit.
And then I believe it was like either 2006 or 2008 that the Live Nation Ticketmaster merger happened. So they
testify. Hold on. So they're frequently, let me just read it from the top. Pearl Jam is not a direct party in the recent landmark antitrust court proceedings against Live Nation Ticketmaster, but they are frequently cited in the litigation as the original whistleblowers who testified before Congress against Ticketmaster's monopolistic practices in 1994.
Right.
Wow.
And that's why I think right now a lot of people are like, well, it's really cute that you guys are trying to do this.
But we've beat you before.
But yeah,
so they fought this stuff for 30 plus years.
They've been fighting it. And that's why I think a lot of people are looking at this right now, because if you when we looked at Live Nation's response to being found guilty, I don't think we read that out loud, but it was basically like, we're going to fight this. These claims are not true. We don't do that. It's why they deposed me. They want to poke holes in everything I say. Yeah, they continuously deny the allegations, attributing industry costs to market forces rather than antitrust violations. They're going to fight it, you know? And so
how do you fight it when they joined up with Ticketmaster? That's what I'm like. I mean, if they had never joined those forces, I get the argument, but man, they're closer now than they were in 1994.
We're close.
That's for sure.
I think, though, because unfortunately what happens is Like they're way more powerful now than they were in 1994, right? So that's my whole point. Like if the punishment is, okay, we're going to split up Live Nation and Ticketmasters as two separate entities, that's not going to do much, because if that's all that happens, they're still going to speak, they're still going to talk to each other, and then they still have so much control of the industry, even separated, that it would do nothing. Like they have to be severely punished to really allow other independents and regionals to rise up in their place and create a fairer market.
So is there any...
And better ticket prices.
Right. Is there any city or area that you visited that gets it right in terms of the mix of large, medium venues, but also small rooms as well?
I think the cities who have fought against it and keep themselves local are the ones that I would name. Like I think we talked about it in DC. They were able to keep Live Nation out of their market. They have a group called IMP that is kind of the go-to instead of Live Nation. In Chicago, there's an organization called Civil, which is basically almost a unionized format of all the different independent operators. And so I think, once again, you got somebody like Venick Sports Group in this market. They are local. I think we just need to look local. And if the answer was still to try to build this 4,000 person room right down the street from Venick, I think you'd have to try to find a local operator or a board of locals to run it. But allowing Live Nation to come in just because it's a sweetheart deal cannot be the answer for the rest of the city.
What's that new badass, the Blind Tiger building on 7th Avenue? Someone's bought that and turning it into like a totally badass, some sort of entertainment venue. I mean, they must be spending a fortune.
I've heard about that too.
Okay. But
I think that person purchased that whole block.
Yeah. It's someone with some jack for sure. But to our point,
we know who it is.
I'm not familiar. I mean, I know the entity because I can look all that up
Right.
because I'm a real estate person.
Right.
But I don't know them personally.
I don't know them personally either. I know where they came from.
Oh.
Like from what they were known for.
Oh, okay. Well,
Can we say it? I don't think it's a big deal. Is it private?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it? I mean, you can edit it out if we have to.
Okay.
It's the guy that started Websteront, is what I was told.
Webster?
Websteront.
Oh, I don't know.
It's like an app to find restaurants, I guess.
Oh, that's cool.
And
that doesn't sound nefarious. I mean, that's not.
Well, this is where we're getting at, though. Like, he purchased it. He purchased the block, and he has this idea of, at least this is what I was told, hey, I want to XYZ, one of these spaces, I want to be independent music venue, but he's never been in that industry before. So now he wants to talk to people with the experience to try to figure out who could operate this thing, who could make it happen. And to that, I would say, well, on that same block, before all this happened, that's where we had the Orpheum.
You haven't talked to him yet?
To this gentleman?
Yeah,
no, I probably ruined it now.
No, I think.
But that's my
if
whole
he's
point.
listening,
That's
or
kind
if
of my
his
point,
people
though.
are listening, they should reach out to you, man, just for the conversation. I think that's badass, man. This is, look, again, I don't know.
I'm not saying it's not, but do you see how it's kind of odd that the Orpheum was right down there and now it's gone, and then this person that's coming in wants to put a live music venue there?
I think that's a good thing. What's wrong with that? I don't think that's weird. I think businesses
I think it's a shame that we lost the operator that had been in Ybor for over 30 years because they got priced out of the market.
Yeah, me too.
That's tough.
It is.
And now we've got somebody that's got a lot of money that's like, well, I'd like to do an independent music venue. Who can help me do it? Like, why can't we help the people that do this for a living stay in their areas?
But you know how complicated those things are. 30 years in business. I mean,
it's just unfortunate, I think. And I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Other than we have to do a better job of lifting up our operators that we have in our city
Well,
that,
what
that do
about
great
those new
work.
people that see opportunity for whatever different reason in Ybor City? Like, this is clearly someone who really gives a shit. Look at the money they're spending on preserving that historic structure. Like, if you drive by it, they're really making that a really nice place. They're keeping that historic facade. Like, this is someone that clearly gives a shit. So why not try to have a conversation with him and help guide him to do kind of what the Orpheum and what you and what others built before. Doesn't mean he has to listen, but at least it could mean you're having a conversation. Look, I respect you coming in. I respect that you like, small businesses, small music venues, and here's what I would do. And don't give up is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
At least someone gives a shit.
I mean, I will talk to him. I had told the last time it was brought up to me, I said, I'm happy to sit down and talk to
Sure.
anybody.
Yeah.
I also told people that that's also called consulting. So I don't know if I can just do that for free.
I understand.
You know what I mean? Like everybody needs to get paid for their time.
Well, we were talking about solutions earlier, and maybe that's a part of it. Maybe you consulting for some of these businesses that are new to the area, individuals that come in and they do have a little money and they want to spend money in Ybor, and they could come to you and be like, hey man, like, we want to respect Ybor and what came before. How do we implement this new idea in the most respectful way possible?
I think within the NIVA talking points, and what I say a lot when we're talking about Live Nation, and then they'll say, well, Live Nation's a problem, but, the secondary ticketing is a problem too.
Yeah.
And that's not Live Nation. I've always said, I don't think it needs to be it's not an and or situation. It's and. This is wrong, and we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this. I think this is no different. I think we can run parallel paths where we help people with more money that are coming into an area that want to do something great while protecting our small businesses at the same time. So
Amen.
once again, maybe the future of Ybor is a little bit pricier, but it's done with consulting with independent people who have a lifetime experiences of this type of industry and what makes it work and how you protect your community and connect to your communities and get fans excited. And then maybe it's also setting up initiatives for those operators that have been in areas that maybe they're priced out of, and cutting the red tape you were talking about earlier so they can own their own spaces and own their own property in areas. So when those areas start develop, those anchor businesses are now owned by those people. So the development is developing around them.
Amen.
I think it's and, with always the intent that we have to build from the ground up and protect our smallest people. And that also that those people that are those boots on the ground people are the most knowledgeable when it comes to the solutions.
100%. Absolutely.
That was pretty good.
Hey, clip it, David. Tom DeGeorge, thank you.
Dude, it was my pleasure.
This was a great conversation. Yeah, I hope we don't get subpoenaed here, but I appreciate that.
I don't think you will.
I'm just kidding. Hit Tom up. Do you have a website you want to promote, or are you connecting with people on social if they want to reach out to you, anything like that?
I guess just my Instagram.
Okay. What is
It's
it?
Tommy, Tommy, BFLD.
Right there. Boom.
Yeah.
Tommy.
I mean, that's
BFLD.
honestly the best place for people if they want to know what's going on. I mean, you can look at it. It's just filled with videos of everything I've done with the city. Obviously, you can catch us on Current Conversations, myself and Captain Matt from Tampa Water Limo. Just recently started that. We've got some great people that do our filming and audio with that.
Shout out Deco Films.
Shout out Deco Films. We're going to be dropping another episode of that soon. And then still for the next few months, crowbar.com and also the NIVA Association website. You can get great content on that too.
And you've said NIVA a lot today, and
Hey, there I am right there again.
That's the National Independent Venue Association.
We were formed in 2020, right after the start of the pandemic. like to tell people there was actually initial conversation about that organization forming, and then the pandemic hit, and those couple people that were having the initial conversation were like, well, I guess we are starting this thing, and they had to put the cart before the horse, but we formed very, very quickly out of crisis. And I tell people that I think those are some of the strongest organizations because my relationships with those other venue owners during that time where we were trying to get the Save Our Stages bill passed, which we did, and we were successful, is very strong. Because, you know, you're sitting there and you're literally quarantined. You know, you have no access to the public really, except for your wife and your family and stuff. And all of a sudden you're spending literally, 20 hours a week on Zoom meetings with people, texting at all hours of the day. You got very close to these perfect strangers in a very short period of time, and you gain a lot of trust and camaraderie. And so very, very, very thankful for the NIVA Association
And it looks
all the
like
work we do.
it looks like they're really active on here, especially in regards to this Live Nation thing. So if you want to follow along, scroll up, David, on Instagram. It's at NIVA Association. It's on Instagram, NIVA SSOC on Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. I know you got to roll, Tom. Thanks
yeah.
you again. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Good times.
Thanks, man. All right. Bye, everybody.